You hear the same objections over and over and over from those who are opposed to what Ammon Bundy and the others are doing out there at the refuge. You have to understand those that are objecting to Ammon Bundy, it's not really that they care about the land. It's not really that they care about anyone's rights. It's not that they care about the Native Americans and their artifacts. What they care about is their own political agenda. These are left wing nut jobs. These are people on the far left, radical liberals. It doesn't matter what the issue is. If they know that there is some kind of conservative on the other end of that issue, they're going to fight and object to it. That's why you'll see in social media, it is very, very rare that you will see a well reasoned argument from a liberal against what Ammon is doing. You know, they'll call them terrorists, they'll call them all kinds of names, talk about sex toys, and just have a great time really stroking their own egos and making fun of everyone but themselves. They pat themselves on the back and see themselves as witty and intelligent, but there's no substance whatsoever to what they're saying, and that's because they're liberals. They don't actually care. It's all a facade. It's all a charade. It's like, they say that they support Black Lives Matter. We support the black community. Really? You liberal whiteys, what are you doing to help them? Nothing. You're not doing a doggone thing. You're not helping them rebuild their communities. You're not doing anything. It's just talk. It's just bluster. And that's what is going on out there. This is a clash of cultures. It is a clash of ideological differences between those who believe in big government and the role of the federal government, a big bureaucracy, dictating to us what our rights should be and how we should be able to express ourselves, whether it's with our property or with our words or what we write online, compared to those who are on the opposite end, who believe in small, limited government, who believe that the role of the federal government is very, very restricted. Essentially, the only role for the federal government is to work to protect the natural rights of man, which are highlighted in the Bill of Rights. So let's run through a couple of these common objections. Liberals say, hey, you white terrorists, get out of the wildlife refuge. All you're there to do is to exploit the land for your own selfish purposes. Now listen, we don't go around talking a whole lot about great deep concern that we have for the endangered species, but that doesn't mean that we are wanting to exploit the land and kill the desert tortoise or the sage grouse or whatever may happen to be there. It is an absolute fact that ranchers and private property owners do a far better job managing the land than the government. If liberals actually cared about the welfare of the land, they would not be pro-government, because the government does a terrible job. And this is something that has been confirmed by the government itself. The Fish and Wildlife Service, their own studies of the Malheur Wildlife Refuge proved clearly that many species left the refuge over a period of years and migrated to the surrounding private lands, the lands that were under the control of ranchers. Why? Because the private lands were far better maintained by the ranchers than the way that the federal government does it. The Fish and Wildlife Service's study proved that the private properties surrounding the refuge had 4 times more ducks, 4 times more geese than they had in the refuge property. They found that migrating birds were 13 times more like, not twice as likely, 13 times more likely to land on the lands owned by a private rancher compared to the refuge, the wildlife refuge. So what's the real refuge? Is it the government-controlled property? No. The real refuge is the property of the ranchers. And the study also revealed, this was the conclusion of the Fish and Wildlife Service study, was that their own no-use policies regarding the lands there at the refuge, that's what's causing the migration of these animals outside of the refuge and into the private properties of the surrounding ranches. Now, really, liberals, if your concern for animals was truly an issue of importance, you'd be more supportive of the good work that ranchers do to maintain their properties. It's in the financial interest of ranchers to keep their properties well maintained. They need to keep it healthy for the sake of their cattle. You people say that we're exploiting the land for personal profit. Duh. Are you living in a teepee? Are you guys out there living in perfect harmony, namaste, with your natural surroundings? Or are you just like every other liberal, living on property that used to be free and clear of humans, living in places that were formerly the homes of species that had to relocate to accommodate the presence of your homes, your businesses, your places of entertainment? Are sage grouses scurrying about happily around your feet as you walk to and from your various places? Are endangered woodchucks nesting gaily in the token ornamental trees planted out there in the medians in the Walmart parking lot? It's really hypocritical to point the finger of blame at ranchers who are using their property as they deem necessary, while you are popping in and out of a Starbucks, which is built on the once pristine land that was inhabited by wild animals, so that you can have the pleasure of a frothy latte. You say that we exploit our lands. That's not true. Ranchers protect their land through the blood, the sweat, and the hard labor that they put in to maintain the natural beauty and resources on their properties. Liberals, they clear-cut the land, top it off with some pavement, and erect another shopping mall. So spare us the pretentious liberal outrage at how ranchers are not taking care of the land and don't care of the land. It's just absolute hypocrisy. And that brings me to my next point. You say that you really, really are upset at how the Paiute Indian tribe has been treated. You say the Paiutes want the Ammon, Bundy, and the others gone out of the refuge. Well, that's true. But they also want control of the land back from the federal government, which is the same thing that Ammon is saying. The local Paiute tribal chairwoman, Charlotte Rodriguez, you may have seen her in some of these videos. She has repeatedly said that they could do a much better job managing the refuge lands than the federal government. That's exactly what Ammon is saying. Here's a quote from Charlotte Rodriguez. She said, I would like to see the lands be free of the federal government as well. They're regulated by federal government very tightly, and I think they have a right to be free like everybody else, talking about the lands there. So don't think that the Paiute are somehow on your side of this issue, you liberals. They aren't. They've got a fair claim on the land to make, which is why the official position of Ammon and the Citizens for Constitutional Freedom is to return control of the lands to the local government and to the Paiutes. If you look up the Citizens for Constitutional Freedom, their actual resolution, which they submitted to government officials, here's what it reads, quote, Harney County government, in equal partnership with the Burns Paiute tribe, will manage and administer this publicly owned land to the values and vision of the local community. Doesn't that refute what you're saying? Here we are, we've got Ammon out there actually trying to put control of the lands into the hands of the Paiute Native American tribe. What are you liberals doing? You see, the Paiute have spent over 100 years asking for their lands back. Oh, Mr. Federal Government, may we please have some lands back? No, we're going to take you and move you over here now because we want that land. Over 100 years of asking has not worked. Well, we aren't asking. We know that doesn't work. Instead, we're taking the lands back. They don't belong to the federal government. We're taking them back. And we're returning them to the local government and to the tribal government. The white man wronged the Paiutes in the past, right? Well, now the white man is making things right. So you liberals need to get out of the way. And regarding your claim that it's Ammon Bundy who's out there disrespecting Paiute artifacts, let me remind you, and you can see the video evidence of this online. After taking control of the refuge, the men out there discovered 1,000 Paiute artifacts in some dank room, some cellar, in boxes. 1,000 artifacts covered in rat feces. It's not us disrespecting the Paiutes, it's the federal government. The federal government took the Paiute lands from them. They're the ones who started this. They are the ones who are today taking these Paiute artifacts, sticking them into a dark cellar to be crapped on by vermin. So you hypocritical liberals, if you actually give a hoot about the Paiute, I strongly recommend you get on board with the people that are doing something to help them out. And it's not the government. You know, I just taking away the properties of the Native Americans and the white ranchers, that's not protecting anybody's rights. You people talk about how the federal government protects people's rights. Yeah, tell that to the ranchers who have had their properties stolen. Tell that to the Native Americans who have been treated and like dirt and spit upon by the federal government for a couple hundred years now. Your assertion that the federal government is protecting the land is simply not true. You're defending the very party that's responsible for the vast destruction of the natural resources out there. And you know, you guys say, well, the federal government can manage the land better than the Native Americans, or the federal government can manage the lands better than private citizens. Really? Do you not remember last year the Environmental Protection Agency dumping millions of gallons of toxins into the Animas River, turning it a beautiful fluorescent orange, devastating vast stretches of once beautiful land and water, killing untold numbers of fish, birds, other animals? I think your faith in the ability of the federal government to manage natural resources is misguided and misplaced, to say the least. If your concern is truly for the environment, if your concern is really about wildlife or the rights of Native Americans, you guys are backing the wrong horse. I'd like to invite you to calm down for a moment. Stop thinking about Donald Trump and the dastardly Republicans, and stop thinking in terms of all of us are white supremacists, and just set aside your current paradigm long enough to look at the situation with fresh eyes. Don't let yourself remain mired in these mud pits of left versus right thinking. You may not like Ammon's methods. But if you're honest with yourself, you'll see that what you're saying you want and what Ammon is after actually coincide pretty well. You would find that you actually agree on far more than you disagree on. So, you know, as a final note, I'll just say this. The few, and they are few in number, the few liberals who actually do engage in some kind of respectful, civil, semi intelligent dialogue, thank you. You are a rarity among your people. Those of you who are against Ammon and what he's doing, who can express yourselves without having to be cruel, without having to talk about how we need another Waco, without making the death threats, and I've gotten quite a few myself. Those of you that can participate in social media without all of your filthy sexual slurs and your insults, those of you who can act like decent Americans, thank you. I hope you will try and influence those around you who are being nasty and foul and cruel to join you. I'm a Christian, so I don't respond to those kinds of attacks with insults of my own, but neither will I allow morally bankrupt people to sully my forums, the things that I have control over, with that kind of smut. You say it's a violation of free speech? No, it's not. If you stop someone from coming and spray painting all over your fence, are you violating their freedom of expression? I guess you could say so in some respect. But do you not have the right yourself to be free of that kind of harassment, that kind of property damage? Well, on our, whether it be Facebook page or some chat room or comment sections, you're right. You come in here with that kind of nasty talk, that kind of indecency, and you will be kicked out. That's just how it is. See, we Christians have this belief that we should treat other people the way we want to be treated. So if you disagree with me, go ahead and disagree. I don't mind that. Tell me so and tell me why. It may be that you've got some valid points that I'm not seeing, and I can amend my way of thinking and come around to your position in some respects, and vice versa. But if you come in talking about all these comments about dildos and lube and all of that nasty stuff, you're just a crass pig, and you don't deserve to have a voice. That's my opinion.
I spoke to him, and he said that he saw the camps and the coffins with his own eyes.
We go live to End Times news correspondent.
Now, you guys know I'm not going to let them get away with that.
Dude, I saw this thing up in the sky, and I don't know what it was. It was just hovering there, and then it was gone.
Yeah, I traded words with Senator McCain. He didn't seem to like being called out on his escapades at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel.
Comet Ison isn't just a comet. It's a harbinger, a herald of things that are coming.
Witnesses described the sound coming out of the sky.
Building was shaking, the fluorescent lights were falling on the people.
What is it going to take for Americans to wake up and realize that their government is preparing for martial law?